let's think about something for a second. What would the world actually sound like, or look like, or even taste like without that familiar buzz of a bee? We're going to dive into what that would really mean, because honestly, the answer is a lot more shocking than you might think.
It seems like a simple question, right? But the consequences are huge. And we're not just talking about missing out on honey here. We're talking about a complete breakdown of the very systems that keep our planet running and keep our plates full.
Okay, get this. 75%. That's the number that really puts this whole thing into perspective. A massive 75% of the world's flowering plants depend on pollinators to reproduce. And who's the undisputed champion of pollination? Yep, the bee. This one little insect is holding up 3/4 of all plant life.
So, to really get what's at stake here, we need to understand why bees are called a keystone species. They're pretty much the linchpin holding entire ecosystems together.
Okay, so the definition itself is super simple. An animal moves pollen from point A to point B. But what that simple act does, wow, that's where things get wild. It's the biological spark that lets plants make seeds and fruits. It's literally the engine that drives plant reproduction across the globe.
And this chart, this really brings it home for us. Sure, staple crops like wheat and rice get pollinated by the wind, but about a third of everything else we eat, all the colorful, nutrient-packed foods, depends on animals like bees. That's over a third of our entire global food supply.
So, let's imagine they're gone. Poof. The very first domino to fall would be our food. The grocery store you walk into every week would look completely different, almost overnight. First on the chopping block, almonds. This crop is nearly 100% dependent on honeybees. No bees, no almonds. The entire global industry would just cease to exist.
And it definitely doesn't stop there. Think about the crisp bite of an apple, or the creamy avocado for your toast. Both rely heavily on bees. Their production would absolutely tank, turning them into these incredibly rare, super expensive luxuries.
Oh, and that morning coffee ritual you love? Yeah, that's at a risk too. Bee pollination dramatically improves the yield and quality of coffee beans. Same goes for blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. All those vibrant, healthy fruits would become a serious rarity.
The money side of this is just staggering. We're talking up to $500 billion. That's the value pollinators add to global agriculture every single year. And that's just the starting point. Think about the ripple effects on all the other industries, from cosmetics to cotton for our clothes. It's a $500 billion hole in the economy that just keeps getting wider.
But this goes so far beyond our farms and our wallets. The disappearance of bees would kick off this terrifying chain reaction, a cascading collapse that would unravel whole ecosystems right from the ground up.
It's a process scientists call a trophic collapse, and it's pretty straightforward, really. First, the plants that need bees start to vanish. Then, the animals that eat those plants, from tiny insects to large mammals, start to starve. And finally, the predators that hunt those animals find their own food disappearing. The whole food web just falls apart.
So what does this actually look like for us at the dinner table? Well, just look at this comparison. On one side, you've got a world with bees. Our diet is vibrant, diverse, and packed with nutrients. On the other side, a world without bees. It's beige. It's a monotonous diet of grains. Our food wouldn't just be boring, it would be dangerously less nutritious.
And if you look down the road, it gets even darker. In the first decade or so, we'd see food shortages and prices soaring. Between 10 and 50 years out, as ecosystems crumble, we'd likely see mass human migrations and major social unrest. And beyond that, we'd be living in a fundamentally different world, one that's quieter, less colorful, and just poorer in every sense of the word.
Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, what about technology? Can't we just build our way out of this, with tiny drones or something?
Well, the reality is pretty stark. What bees do naturally is incredibly efficient, it's sustainable, and hey, it's free. Trying to replicate that with humans or robots is astronomically expensive and just not sustainable. I mean, in some parts of China where bee populations are already devastated, they actually have to pay armies of people to hand-pollinate apple trees with paintbrushes. Imagine trying to do that on a global scale. There's just no way.
And that's because, at the end of the day, pollination isn't just a mechanical task. Bees are part of this deeply intricate web of ecological relationships that has evolved over millions of years. Technology simply can't replicate that kind of complexity. They don't just do a job, they maintain the very fabric of life.
Now, I know this all sounds incredibly grim, but here's the most important part. This future is not inevitable. This isn't a eulogy, it's a wake-up call. And the good news is, we know how to help our silent partners.
The solutions are totally within our reach. We can reduce the use of harmful pesticides, we can restore natural habitats like meadows, we can support farmers who practice sustainable agriculture, and hey, we can all play a part, even just by planting some bee-friendly flowers in a garden. Every single action matters.
There's this quote that just gets to the heart of it all. It says, "The bee is both a messenger and a mirror, and its decline reflects our own ecological imbalance." It's so true. The fate of the bee isn't some separate problem. It's a direct reflection of our relationship with the planet.
And that leaves us with one final critical question. If the bee's future is a mirror of our own, what are we going to choose to see in that reflection? A warning we ignored or a call to action we answered? Right now, that choice is still ours to make.